is the
Okay, welcome back to the Are You Strong show. I have an awesome guest on today, and this young man, to me, young man, he might not think that himself, but I'm saying young man. His perspective on college athletics and player development is I can't wait to dive into this conversation. And but let me just give you his little accolades here first, and just to give you an idea of who we're talking to here today. But I'm going to kind of go backwards in time to the beginning of his world of player development, and started out at the University of Houston. Okay,
Boogs.
Houston, right? In the as a director of player development, then was the director of player development at University of Kansas.
Rock
Again,
Chalk.
big time programs.
Yeah.
And then what's really cool, I don't know why I think this is bigger and better, but the Baylor University director of player development. That's big time athletics, man.
Bears.
But then also he's got his fingers in a couple other things, which is neat. Is a the program director at the Rise, and I thought this was really cool. It's a nonprofit where they educate and empower the sports community to, and I thought this is really neat, to eliminate racial discrimination, champion social justice, and improve race relations. That is so powerful and cool that that's not talked about enough. Okay. But now this is really fun. He is the founder of Beyond the Field Player Development. And this is really what we're going to talk a lot about today, where he helps student athletes find their purpose in life, which is so cool. And that's the whole idea of player development is to become, and this company that he has started has become the premier resource for those in player athletic development and for those looking to get into player athletic development. So, with all that being said, welcome to the show, Edward Jones II.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, Jeff. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time. And I'm excited for you all that are listening. Thank you for taking time to listen.
Yeah, I am excited. I've had a bunch of athletes on the show for the last 8, 10 months, but your perspective from your eyes of what you've seen over the years in the college athletic world, I can't wait to talk about it. It's a different view, a different thought, and the impact that you have made on, you probably can't count the athletes. There's just too many schools, too many athletes, too
Yeah.
much. It had to be a lot of fun. But before I get into ripping a lot of questions with you, why don't you just tell the audience just a little bit about yourself?
Well, hey, everyone. My name's Ed Jones II. I go by Edward. I always introduce myself as Edward, but I go by Ed. I'm from Houston, Texas. I've been a
Houston.
sports junkie my entire life. I always was enamored by everything that was happening, not only in the game, but outside of the game. How coaches coach their players, how they, why does this team continue to win, culture, different things like that. So as I went through school, I wanted to study sports administration. I played football, had a couple opportunities to play at some smaller schools, but I knew I wanted to study sports because I knew I wasn't going to NFL. And I was like, look, if I'm gonna go 4 years somewhere, I want to study what I want to study. And so got to the University of Houston. They were the only program at the time of the schools I visited that had sports administration. So I said, I'm coming here. My parents were excited because they went to the University of Houston and I was 30 minutes from home. Tried out there, didn't work out, but I got to work in sports marketing where I learned a lot about the end game and how you do different things. Built a lot of relationships with athletes and people working athletics. Coach after graduating, I coached for 6 years at the high school level, and I got into coaching to impact lives. I don't know why. I've always, in shout out to my parents how they raised me, but I've always been about other people. And so I coached for 6 years, and I was the type of coach. If we were watching film breaking out X's and O's, and players came in, I was going to spend time with the players. I was always about the players, and so I had a great opportunity, as Jeff said in introduction to Tom Herman, who was a head coach at Houston, came one day, and I was getting our recruiting board ready for him, and he said, "I want to interview you." And so I had a great pleasure of working 6 years at the collegiate level in player development. Really got to impact many lives, and here I am now. I just want to help people, and now I'm helping people get into that role, impacting athletes from a different space that I
Yeah.
don't even know half of these athletes I'm impacting. So I'm excited in this new phase of life, kind of being out of sport. I just like developing people. That's really what I've always loved: coaching people, teaching people, helping build people, get people to a place they couldn't get to by themselves.
That's awesome. And you mentioned before your parents. Um, without parents giving you a good direction, most kids don't end up in a good spot.
Right.
So, and then on top of that is coaching. And you probably got into coaching. because of your past coaches and the impact they've made on you. So between your parents and your coaches, combine them together, what an impact they made on you. Now you're
Absolutely.
just taking that and delivering it to the next level,
Absolutely.
which is so cool. So I got a million questions to ask you.
Let's go.
So the first one is you kind of mentioned it, but let's go a little bit deeper. Beyond the field, the program itself, the company itself, what inspired you to say, I'm going to get this thing rolling?
Yeah, so Beyond the Field started at the University of Houston. I had an opportunity to present in front of recruits and their parents. It was the first time I ever did it. And I have a marketing minor. And so I did not want to be, oh, that's the guy that does player development. I wanted a program. I wanted parents to walk away with, oh, okay, you're going to help my son. And so I was like, I gotta come up with something catchy and beyond the field. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna make an impact beyond the field. Very basic, whatever it may be. And what I took was the three tenets of what I was told to do when Tom Herman hired me, which is take care of the players. I turn that into personal wellness, get in the community. I turn that into community impact and get these guys summer jobs. I was like, well, if they need summer jobs, they're probably gonna need jobs when they're done playing. Turn that into career development. And so that's where it started. So I didn't, it was just a program. And when I got to the University of Kansas, I brought it with me, of course, and we had a speaker. And so the speaker asked me about what I did. I broke down the entire Beyond the Field program, and he looked me dead in my eyes and he said, you need to make this into an LLC. By the time you're 40, this thing's going to take off. Just, we were driving. He had spoke to our team. I was driving him back to the airport. It's like a 50-minute drive. He spent about 30 minutes telling me how this program was actually a company and what I could do. And so I couldn't believe it at that point. I was like, that's
Yeah,
awesome and nice, whatever. But I did on my birthday that year. I said, let me just make an LLC. And so I took Beyond the Field with me to Baylor. And then I realized over time that there were a lot of people getting in this space like me in 2016 who didn't know what they were doing. And so I said, well, let me just educate people. And so I've been on that path and learning the business side of
yeah.
things, but really excited for 2025 and what it will do for the business.
Cool. Now let me ask you this. For those who might not be fully aware, the colleges you worked at, it wasn't like they were like small little D3 schools that had really nothing going on. You were in major powerhouse schools. Can you talk about what it was like to walk on campus, and say, I'm gonna work with these highly talented collegiate athletes and prepare them for really life after the game or beyond the field.
Right. So speaking of high, big time, universities, I think what I loved and always impressed upon young professionals who work in college athletics is there's a massive amount of people on this campus that are just incredible individuals. Like at University of Houston, Dr. Brene Brown is a professor, right? So Dr. Brene Brown and all the work she does and vulnerability, like she's a professor. And I didn't even realize who she was until our head coach's wife was like, hey, she should talk to the team. And then I went over to her office and they were like, yeah, she's booked for the next 2 years. But anyway, you go on this campus. So, like the University of Houston, you have Carl Lewis and Leroy Burrell are coaches. Like these are Carl Lewis,
That's
like,
crazy.
like they're like they're literally right here. I can go talk to them. And
Yeah.
so, like you said, it wasn't, the small, nothing against the D3
Yeah.
school. Here at
Yeah.
the University of Houston, not only am I at this major university, but we're in a city where there's Fortune 500 companies everywhere. In a state where there's headquarters everywhere. We could drive 3 hours and be wherever we need to be. And so you have this aspect of like, we can make so much impact, not only in the player's life, but in the community, because it's just so many people that live in Houston. And so for me, we had so many strategic partnerships at our hand. We just had to open those up. When I went to Kansas, little, definitely smaller than Houston, but KU has a
Still big
so
school.
big, right? A huge alumni, where the Jayhawk is recognized around the world. So we had a lot of support from alumni. So for instance, one of the football players at KU is the president of Crayola. Another guy who worked at KU helped create Google Maps. And like I follow Instagram or Twitter, we talk like,
Yeah.
so you're building for me. I always want to see, okay, what people what things make this university proud. And at Baylor moving to Waco, there's a lot of big things there at Waco. Dr. Pepper is headquartered there. You got, so many different things there. And so for me, it was always, how can we take advantage of what's already here at this university? What does our university provide? Because a lot of these people, a ticket to a game, to me, I get you tickets to a game. If you're going to spend 8 hours with my student athletes, a ticket is nothing. I can get you,
Yeah.
and so it's like, what's the exchange for what we provide to what they provide? And
Mm.
so I think sometimes with football coaches, they think, oh, SEC, that's the big thing. But it's like, no, like you are where you're at. There were things we did at Houston that I couldn't do at KU or Baylor. We had access to people, professional sports teams, right? So, for instance, we had opportunity to go with the Houston Sports Authority in Houston, or the president of operations for the Rockets was a UH grad. So there's different things there, but it was awesome to really come around and partner with a lot of incredible people at these universities.
I can only imagine the relationships you've built and how far that type of you think about the ripple effect. You throw a rock in the water and the ripple goes out. I mean, just the ripple effect of all the athletes you've touched and the people you've met and how far that goes. But in your quest for development, you talk about generational impact.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? Go a little deeper, and how do you bring that to life, in the world you're in now and in the schools you were working with? Generational impact.
Yeah. So the number one reason I use generational impact, one of the biggest stories I was always told is my dad's grandfather, excuse me, my dad's father, my grandfather. When he was young, his dad had left them, and he had 10 or 12 brothers and sisters. So he became the man of the house at 14 years old. And one day his mother was breastfeeding his sister, and she died just
Oh my
right there.
God.
The baby started screaming. He went to go check, found out his mother was dead. And so he had a choice to do what he saw his father do, which was leave or stay there. And so my grandfather stayed there. He became a father immediately, even to his siblings that were older than him. And he made sure that every single one of them went to school, got educated. They would tell stories about how if they skipped school, he would find them and discipline them at like 15 years old. But
Yeah.
he became the man of the house immediately, and he sacrificed his own education. So my grandfather was illiterate, couldn't read or write. We had to read his birthday cards to him every birthday, different things like that. I remember I taught my grandfather what yield was. We were driving. I learned driving, and he's from a country town in East Texas, and it's a green light and the arrow goes off and he's sitting there and I'm like, Grandpa, you can go. He's like, well, the arrow's not on. I was like, Grandpa, like it's yield to, like, I had to teach my grandpa like all these
Yeah.
years, 70 years, he never,
Wow.
made a left. So anyway, but from his decision to get everyone educated, he has his brothers and sisters went to college, got educated. He has multiple children who are college educated. He has grandchildren. I was a teacher. When I worked at KU, this is crazy. I worked at KU. One of my cousins was a professor. So one of his sisters, their grandkid was a professor because he
Wow.
made that decision. And so we have a family of educators based off one choice my grandfather made in the 1920s, um, to give up his education. So I tell people all the time, when I tell my athletes generational impact, I say, hey, you all may think it's huge. I got to go and I got to feed a whole community. And I'm like, hey, look at the example of my grandfather. He made one choice. His
Yeah.
choice was, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to help everybody. And look what it's done. So many people around the world have been educated by his kids. My sister was a teacher. My other sister was a teacher and a coach. My dad coached for a little bit. I mean, it's crazy how many of us have went the education route, and my grandfather didn't even get an education. And so that's what generational impact means to me.
Yeah.
Is always want to let our players know it just takes one choice. If that one choice is, I'm going to get a degree, or I'm going to go to class, or I'm going to get a semester high GPA, or I'm going to show up in the community, or I'm going to be a man of my word. Whatever it is, that one ripple effect could do whatever. So for instance, I would always tell our players, we would show up at schools and we had this weekly deal we would do. When you show up every week, you're helping that kid in that school. You never know what's going to happen to that kid because you showed up. That kid may be the next, president of a university, next doctor, next police chief, whatever.
Yeah.
You never know. And he's going to go back to that one moment. All you did was make one choice to be there for someone else. And so that's what generational impact is for me. It is, and I tell my athletes all the time, you guys think grand. It's one choice. It's one choice that impacts other people.
That is so cool. I mean, what a story. Talk about ripple effect. I mean, it's going back 100 years.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So you kind of just said it, but I'm going to ask you the question anyway. Was there any pivotal moment in your life personally where you said, "Hey, this is what I'm going to do. This is my mission. This is my purpose. This is my quest."
Yeah. So hold on. I don't know if you hear these kids jumping up and down.
No,
You hear that?
no,
Okay, perfect. I was
no.
going to text. All right. So for me, perfectly, or specifically player development, what changed my mindset. So when I got to the University of Houston, I wanted to coach ball. I still love coaching ball. I still like when I watch the game. I love coaching. I love making impact, but I also love coaching ball. Because this is what kept me on the field. I went to a school where everybody was more athletic than me, stronger than me. I just knew everything. I knew where everybody, I knew where I had to be, and it just kept me on the field as a player. And so what hung it up for me, what ended the aspect of me doing player development was we had an alumni event, and one of our players, big time players from the '90s, whose jersey was in our Hall of Fame, cleats were in our Hall of Fame, his record book was still there, all his records. We were trying to get kids to break them, all of that. He came to our event, and one of the fathers of one of our players, whose dad actually was a coach at the University of Houston, he was our play-by-play guy. He's like, man, it's so sad to see so and so. Man, he's homeless and man, he's massively overweight. And he just kind of was like, all right, I'll see you tomorrow. And it's just like it became everybody's reality. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, how is this possible? How does he come do all this for university? We have all this stuff up, and he's homeless, like with no hope. He was crying the whole time around it, just crying
Yeah,
around his teammates and all that. And I'm just like, I just want to, for me, it was like, I don't want any player that I spend time with or I've impacted to be in this situation.
yeah.
No way. And I remember it was on the front of my head for 2 weeks. I was still trying to coach and I just hung up the proverbial whistle and I was just like, yeah, I'm done. I'm going to dive into player development. I'm going to
Wow.
dive in here. I'm going to impact athletes because no matter, even if they make the wrong choices, can they come back and get our help? So that
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 is
was a changing
crazy.
moment for me.
And how long ago was that?
That was 2016.
So
And what
not
was
that long ago.
Yep, yep. And when he came back the next year for our alumni event, he had dropped about 50 pounds. He had got a job. It was great. A lot of his teammates had supported him. And
That's
so
great.
he was a little older than me to approach, but it was great to see that he had an
Yeah.
ecosystem.
That is awesome. You're talking about, you just said ecosystems, right? Merging ecosystems. There's so many different ways. And if I think, when I just think of, I don't know anything about director of player development. All I know is that you help the athletes. That's it, right? Now, when I think of ecosystem mergers and bringing so many different alumni together, just like what happened is like you can bring so many together and impact other people. Hey, this guy can help her. This guy can help him. These guys can help each other. And that's really the job of the director of the player development, is to direct all these different connections to help these people get to the next level.
It's exposure.
Yeah.
You're exposing opportunity, you're exposing needs, you're exposing just different aspects. That's it. Because a lot of people just don't know. They don't know
No.
what they know. Because a lot of people, this, a lot of people think athletes have it all square. You
Oh,
got
yeah.
school for free.
Yeah.
You played in NFL. There was a something where I think it was might have been Gilbert Arenas was talking to somebody, or like, you made over $100 million in your career. How'd you feel? He's like, I felt miserable after I
Yeah.
retired, because everybody thinks, and especially now in NIL, everybody thinks, oh, we don't have to develop the college players because they're making money.
Making
And
money.
like, yeah, it's like that's not the case.
There's a handful of them making money. That's about
Correct.
it. That's it.
Yeah. And those who are making money, that might not be their money. They may be giving that money to someone else.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And you just hit something that I try to have every athlete who comes on talk about this, because the typical average, I don't want to use the word average. What word do you use for students who's not an athlete? Are they the average student, just the typical traditional student?
we would call them, yeah, we would call them traditional students.
Traditional students. So they walk around campus. Let's go to Baylor.
Yep,
Baylor is one of the biggest athletic programs in the country. Would you agree? I
absolutely. It
mean,
was.
they are huge, right?
Mhm.
And if I'm the traditional student walking around campus and I see the middle linebacker walking around, and I think, oh, he's got it made. He gets everything handed to him. He gets this, he gets that. Can you talk from your perspective as the person who had to deal with these guys day in and day out, from behind the scenes, what it's like to be the director of player development, to talk to the middle linebacker of Baylor University, where it's midweek, practicing, injuries, mental stress, anxiety, depression, grades, game plan. How do you Can you just talk about that? Because the traditional student doesn't get that.
No. So the big thing that you see a lot of people in social media, and I have to stop myself every time from arguing with people, is like when they came in, players wanting to get paid. I was for it because a lot of
Yeah,
these
me
colleges.
too.
Now I think the system that they have right now, they got to figure that out. I thought I really like the you earn what you get, but that's a whole nother thing. But a lot of people say, well, they got everything paid for. And it's like, do you understand that? So I'll use a middle linebacker, for instance. I will use when I was at Baylor, Terrell Bernard. He's the captain of the Buffalo Bills right now.
Okay.
Terrell was a incredible player on the field. Going into his senior year on the field, he was getting his master's, his master's. So he had graduated. He's a high performing athlete, but he's a high performing student as well. So Terrell had to train early in the morning, 6 o'clock, right? While most traditional students are sleep,
Sleeping.
whatever, he's training. He's got breakfast at 7 o'clock. He's got, he was a little, he didn't need tutoring because he was mature. They kind of phase out as they get more mature. But if he needed tutoring, it's at 8 o'clock, whatever it may be. He's in class at 9 before anybody, right? Before students who don't have anything to do.
Yeah.
He, he's in the front. He's making the best grades. He's one of the best students in the classroom. Okay, boom, 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, he eats lunch. Boom, he's getting taped. Now he's getting taped. He's getting taped. Now he's watching film while students are either doing homework, enjoying social life, whatever. He's getting taped. He's a captain on the team, so now he has to take care of we've paired him with a young freshman, so he's got to mature, mentor this person. He may have another lift. He's going to go down and get some training, get his body right for practice. We got a team meeting. He's got a position meeting. He's got practice starts at 5. It probably ends at 6:30. Boom, he eats dinner. After that, he's got to do homework. And so it's like what I tell people all the time is they don't skip being a student. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
they got the scholarship, but it doesn't negate them from being a student.
Right.
People say, well, they're not cheating because nobody wants to cheat because you will get fired. You'll get fired,
Yeah.
they'll get expelled. They have tutors that are geared towards them. What people don't realize is those tutors might not be at a time that they want. So a traditional student can say, hey, I want to go to tutoring. Let me sign up for 2 to 4.
Yeah.
So I can be done by 5, have my evening, watch my shows, whatever, right? Or enjoy life. An athlete can't pick. You got it in the morning, you got it after practice.
Yeah.
And so for them to carry all that, and the players see them and they're big, like, and our players actually, they express to our coaches how difficult it is for them in class because football players, you're going to know, oh, he plays football. Like it's not that hard. That people are like, oh, you got it made up. And they're in the classroom giving more effort than these
Yeah.
students cheer for them on the weekend. But Terrell was literally a all Big 12 performer. When I was at Baylor, we had our team GPA went up, I think a couple points, like 3.2, and then we had a record 38 athletes on the Big 12 academic honor roll. So that's you're looking at 30% of our team, almost 40% of our team is doing it right in the classroom. Like
That's so cool.
you can't take a freshman class. What other group of students can you say, hey, 30% of these 120 students are doing the right thing? And so it's a lot that the students don't realize. And then you put in social media. So if I'm a student and I make a mistake in my class, I miss something, whatever, I miss an assignment, right? Let's call it is. I miss an assignment as a student. Nobody knows.
Yep.
Boom. If I'm a football player, I miss an assignment, everybody can know, and then everybody can reach out to me. So that's an aspect like, and I know when social media first started going, I used to be like, you guys can ignore it. They can't ignore it. They
No.
can ignore it. Every single person can get to them. And so they have to balance that too. Then you have to balance students who, think dumb jock, this, that,
Yep.
oh, it's given to you. And it's like they are working their absolute tails off.
Yeah.
Even the ones who may not be, and even I've seen kids who academics may not be their biggest strength. I've seen them work so hard just to be able to be eligible. And I think students don't realize how hard that is for them to
Yeah.
balance all that.
Yeah.
Um, and so it's interesting because there's a lot of athletes that do that. What we tell our athletes is, hey, when it comes to getting hired, you have more, specifically when you do well academically, because you're doing the same thing that a traditional student is doing, plus
Yep.
being an athlete. And so, plus traveling and having to take a test 2 days early because you have to take, it's a lot that a lot of people don't
Yeah.
realize happens with athletes.
Yeah. And Ed, I don't know enough about your position, but I'm going to take a big guess here that there's coaches on the field, right? You're their
Mhm.
coach off the field,
Yeah.
right? You are their coach off the field for life,
Yeah.
right? You're coaching them about life, the next steps in their life.
Absolutely.
life events and how athletics can help propel them. But can you talk about, and I don't know if you had to deal with this much, I'm going to guess you did, is that well, if you use that same linebacker, right? And if he had a rough day, rough week, rough life going on behind the scenes, and you can see it,
Right.
right? You can see in their eyes, you can see in their body language. Can you talk about, did you ever have to handle stuff like that? If you did, how did you go about it? And how did the players relate to you as the coach of life versus the coach on the field?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting you say that. Because at one point I was thinking to myself, I always wanted to be a head coach. And I was like, I am a head coach. I'm a head coach off the field. And when I worked for Coach Les Miles at Kansas, he had a radio show and I was going up after him. And he's like, Ed Jones is here? He's like, hey, Ed Jones is the head coach outside of football. He knows more stuff than I do. And I was like, actually, I do. But it's pretty cool to hear my head coach say that because I've been thinking about that. But when it comes to stuff on life, I think a lot of coaches, I've heard coaches say, hey, you need to compartmentalize it. You need to just block it. And so for me, it's like, hey, this is part of your life. Whatever's
Yeah.
going on back home, whatever's going on campus, whatever's happening. So for me, I always wanted to be a place where they can just let it out. Hey man, this is how I'm feeling. This sucks, whatever. And I always wanted, I never ever talked about, now I congratulated when they did well, if I saw great effort or whatever, but hey, I see you playing well. But I never wanted it to be, hey, playing time, whatever. So they knew they can come to me and they could have conversations. There was one time I knew a kid that he told his grandma, and I was the second person to find out he had a kid on the way. And he
Oh
was
boy.
just like, I was so honored. And I asked him, like, you know, why'd you come and let me know? He's like, Coach, because I could trust you. And I know you're not going to judge me and you're going to give me advice on how to get this done. I didn't want to have a kid this young. And, it's just like, for me, that meant a lot. So it was like, okay, well, and he said, Coach, honestly, we were having kids at the same time. I was like, you're right, Uh, and so that was what it was. Like, I trust you. I'm not going to judge you. Now, at the end of this, I am going to tell you what you need to know because you have to make the next best step. I have to make sure that when you leave here, you might not agree with me, but I'm going to give you the best next step that you need to take. And so when I say there's stuff that coaches don't know, there's stuff to this day coaches don't know. And so there were certain situations where, okay, this happened. The coach should know because my big deal was I never wanted a coach, and I learned this when I was a high school coach. If you know something, you don't want a coach to find out that you know it, right?
Right.
And for me in colleges, I never wanted a coach to go to a press conference or his weekly meeting and say, or media time and say, and someone from the media be like, hey, we heard so and so and so and so. And he's like, hey, did anybody know this? And then I'm like, yeah, sorry, coach. And
Yeah.
so I would tell the player, hey, I need to let him know this much. All this stuff is between me and you, but I have
Right.
to let him know, hey, coaches want to let y'all know. Um, so there's a kid on the way for so and so. So we got the resources. Boom. That's all they need to know.
Yeah.
That's all they need to know. Because truly, honestly, that's all they need to know.
Yeah.
What I found out, which is sad, um, if you give the coaches too many details, coaches talk. And so there was a situation at a university I worked at where this kid had it was a bad situation, just a terrible situation for the kid. Just a lot of stuff from high school. Somebody basically leaked a video from a long time ago. And
Yeah.
so we had to look out for this kid and make sure that kid's doing well. And so I had a friend who interviewed for a position there, and he was like, "Hey man, so and so told me about the situation." I was like, "Why would you say this to somebody's interview? They don't need to know that. If you want to say, hey, this young man, he had some stuff happen." And so I was always cognizant of that. Like every
Yeah.
coach does not need to know. So anyway, I always wanted to create an area where they could trust me, but they also knew. I always let them know, like you still have to, because the truth is, you still, unless it's an emergency or when he send you back home, you still have to play football. You still have to go to class. That's
Yeah.
part of the agreement. And so this is how we're going to balance it. I need you to get through today's practice. I'll let your coach know that this is going on, and then come back to me. We'll figure out how we're going to get through school. And then when I found out things, I was going to go talk to 4 people or 5 people. Well, I'll count it. Here we go. I'll go to head coach, position coach, the strength coach had to know, academics had to know, our trainer had to know, and our dietitian had to know because they won't eat. They won't eat, or they might not, whatever. So just letting them know, like, hey, this is happening. They don't need to know all the details.
Yeah.
It's happening. Maybe we had a player, his uncle, close uncle passed away. Hey, just want to let y'all know his uncle passed away. Maybe he does, strength coach like we're gonna give him. He doesn't need to lift. We're gonna let him get some time. Boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
It's just
Give him a break.
give him a break, right? But they
Yeah.
knew they could come to me because they could trust me. The biggest thing you cannot break is the trust with players. I had a coach who wanted me to break the trust with players, and I could not do it. And me and this coach were in conflict. But I was like, Coach, I know you, and that's the hardest thing about player development. You're hired by a coach to serve the players, but if you lose the trust of the players, you can't do your job. And so there's this tension of like, how much does the coach truly need to know? And I
Yeah.
had this one coach who wanted to know everything, and I was like, Coach, you cannot know everything. I'm sorry.
No.
Like, and we had this tension where I was like, Coach, I'm letting you know. It's not like I'm not letting you know anything, but these details, this is between me and this player.
Yeah.
And so, yeah,
And I wonder, what you just said, the coaches want to know everything. I just wonder, will they coach the kid differently if they know too much?
absolutely.
You know what I
And
mean?
some coaches are not emotionally mature enough to handle certain situations, no matter how I know. And I worked for one coach. This coach was a philosophy man. He thought too much about everything.
Yeah.
Everything was, and so it's like I can't let this. Everything was like just this massive problem, right? So,
Yeah.
like for instance, we would have guys that would clap at practice. He didn't like it. I was like, just address it in practice. Blow your whistle, say, hey, stop clapping at practice. But we had this long 30-minute meeting about people clapping at practice and how they're trying to be a-holes. And I was like, maybe the kid, maybe it's a sensory thing. Maybe they just clap. Just let them know in the moment and then get it over with. So I knew if I let him know stuff, it was just gonna go everywhere. And he confided in people who were not they just weren't good people.
Yeah.
They would talk bad about everybody, talk bad about the players. One person he confided in was about the same age as the players. And so you just got to, you know what I'm saying? Like if I tell him
Yeah.
this, he's going to tell them all this. This is going to get back out. And so you just have to, and there are some coaches, I have worked for some coaches that can handle it. They can, because
Yeah.
they care. But you have to balance that because some coaches get jobs because they're good at one side of the ball, but they're not
Yeah.
good at being leaders of men. And
Right.
and you have to understand that. Some position coaches, I didn't let them know everything because they
Yeah.
were older to get the kid, or say it in the meeting. And then the kid comes back to look at me. It never happened, but if that gets out, they're gonna come back and look at me and I lose my
Right.
trust because this player then tells all the other players that trust is there. So this actually is a true story. When I got to one of the universities, I replaced someone who the kids knew was a tattletale, for lack of a better word. And so it took me 3 weeks for them to warm up and be like, okay, you're a good dude. Because
Yeah.
they would literally make up lies to this person just to see if this person lied. So for instance, there was one lie where they told this guy, hey, somebody smoking in the locker room, somebody smoking in the locker room, just to see if he would go investigate it or go straight to the head
Right.
coach. Well, he went straight to head coach. Head coach runs down the locker room. It's like, who's smoking in the locker room? So the players
Oh
knew
boy.
that he was, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So they're testing you out.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Because
so think about, you've been in player development for a while now,
Mhm.
but it really hasn't been around a long time. If I go back to my years in the 80s playing, there was no player development. There was like this practice is over, see you tomorrow.
Correct.
That was it. Can you talk about the challenges you faced, as, from if you go back to the very beginning till now and how that position has evolved,
Right.
and what kind of challenges you faced along the way?
The biggest challenge is what you mentioned. A lot of the coaches that I work for played in the 80s with you, where it was
Yeah.
like, you got to figure it out on your own, and there is some merit to, figuring it out. But these athletes are different. There's a lot of things that people in the 80s didn't face social media, right? People
Oh,
in the 80s didn't have people recording them everywhere they go or following them wherever they go, or can have access to them wherever they go, or a fan, it was water cooler talk, and now water cooler talk has become I can have access to you, right?
yeah.
So there's different things. And then there are also just opportunities. There's different opportunities with technology and social media, and they can become entrepreneurs or whatever. And so that's the hardest fight is getting coaches. The biggest thing is finding support from coaches. Every coach is going to hire a position because they're competitive. So if I'm Ed Jones, I'm the head coach at University of Houston, and I just got hired, and the coach at TCU, he has two people in player development. I'm just going to want two people in player development because of his staff is bigger than mine. So that I found that out at Kansas. So when I worked at Kansas, our AD put up support staff numbers, and KU was at the bottom, and he talked about how we're going to make this climb to get up to the top of the Big 12. So coaches will hire just to be competitive and not know what that role should do or
Yeah.
can't do or is supposed to do. And so you deal with that. So, for instance, when I was at Baylor, there was a struggle with me and the head coach. He planned out this incredible, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, you're going to have this staff. Because I'm asking all these questions. At KU, we weren't winning, but that's the Houston and KU allowed me to really, really be in that player. We did a lot of great things. And so I'm like, I don't want to leave this. And so he said all the right things. But when I got there, that's not what he wanted to do. He wanted a class checker and a breakfast checker. That's not what player development is.
Yeah.
So the biggest struggle is coaches still don't. That's why I spend so much time, so many podcasts. I'm trying to get coaches to understand what it could do and how
Yeah.
to help a program. But that's number one. That's the biggest challenge. And then getting time on the calendar. So a coach may say, hey, yeah, we should do a 5-week summer program. But now coaches are squeezed. If they don't win, they're on a hot seat. So it's like, hey, that off the field programming is awesome, but we got to win. And then now with the influx of transfers, a lot of
Oh,
like, well, we don't have them for 6 months anyway. So whatever. Like it's, and so those are challenges I hear from people in the role, and challenges I had is just that you don't have people understand. Now, the coaches who do understand it are starting to become younger coaches. So, for instance,
yeah.
I had a podcast where I talked to Usman Kamara, who's at Oregon, and Dan Lanning understands player development. He wants it. Why? Dan Lanning is 38 years old, I think, maybe 39. He's a
Young guy.
coach who played and understands today. So it's starting to change. You have younger coaches that understand it. There are some older coaches that understand it as well, but that's the biggest challenge. Like everybody understands why they need recruiting, right? Everybody understands why they need a strength coach. Everybody
Yep.
understands why they need a dietitian, but still getting people to understand what player development, why they need it.
So that leads right into my next question, Ed. This is going perfect. Is well, if you were going to create a director of player development department, right?
Mhm.
What are the steps to do that? What are the elements you need in place? Say, hey, that's going to work over there.
Yeah. So I'm actually glad you mentioned this. I'm going to speak at the American Football Coaches Association in January about this. But the number one thing is a coach has to identify, and a coach or athletic administrator or the person, let's say, for instance, they're like, hey, let's say, a school reaches out to HF, we want you to do player development. Awesome. And they say, run with it. You have to identify three major things. I call it the rule of three, right? They say things that are in threes are easily memorable. You remember, that's why I have three kids, because I can't remember a fourth name. No, I'm just playing. But if you think about it, bada, bop, 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 I'm loving it from McDonald's, just do it from Nike. Everything's in three. So I tell
Yep.
coaches, hey, what are the three things that you care about the most? And what I say too is, first question is, I should go back. The first question is, 10 years from now, what do you want your players to say about the impact you made on their life? Because the coach knows that every single player they coach is not going to be playing in the NFL. And even if some make it to the NFL, 10 years, they're not going to play that one. So you say, what are the things you want to say? So they may say, hey, I want them to be great husbands. Okay, so we're doing something with a person or citizen. I want them to have a great job. And I just want them to be a great ambassador of community. Okay, awesome. You take those three things, you put them into whatever it is. So any coaches that are listening to this, hey, bring me in. This is what we'll do. So you take those three things and you want to break components of that. So if you want to be a great husband, like what is that? What does a great husband look like, or a great man look like? Well, a great man is a leader. Okay, cool. We need to do some leadership stuff. Okay. All right. If you want them to have a great job, well, why do you think they should have a great job? Well, I want them to impact through their job, pick a career that they want. Okay, so let's do career discovery. Okay, if you want them to be an ambassador in the community, why should they be ambassador? Because there's so much impact they can make. All right, awesome. Let's talk about this. And so that's where we start. There has to be, to me, three pillars. Some people go 4 or 5. I'm okay with that. I'm a big believer in three. You can fit everything else under those three. And then from there, we're going to get the components like I talked about. From there, you just get ideas now. What are the ideas? What can we do here? Well, if we want them to be, great men, great, we should do a panel with our former players. Cool. Do a panel. And so it's just you're breaking down what it is that they want. So whenever a coach interviews me, or I've been interviewed in a role, my question is always, I'm asking questions, find out what they really care about. Because they can say, hey, we really want them to be, great in the classroom, great, whatever. And that's coach talk. But as I'm listening to the conversation, you really want them to be great men. You want them to be in the community, and you want them to have jobs. When they look back, you want them to say, he prepared me for where I am right now, right? And so that's where you want to start. What are those top three? And I'm listening. They're going to say it. And it's crazy. I actually did a newsletter where I listen to every FBS new head coach press conference. Just listen to it, put on 2x speed, and I listen to what they're saying about the players. And a lot of them say the same thing. And so it's like, but what are they saying overall? So that's kind of how you start from there. And then you start finding people who can help. I always tell people, start with alumni, start with former players, start with alumni. I think a lot of people forget about the alumni at a university. So a lot of people go just former players, but you got to remember, like you said earlier, I worked at the University of Houston, University of Kansas, and Baylor University. That's a strong alumni pipeline. So I'm reaching out to all alumni. If a
Yeah.
football player falls into that, awesome. If a basketball player falls in that, awesome. If a traditional student falls in that, awesome.
Yeah.
So That's how I was started.
And you know, what about just the local fans
Mhm.
who didn't go to school there, but they grew up around there and they became lifelong fans of the school, the athletic department, the team, the sport? How involved do they get? I don't mean the NIL money and
Yeah.
that kind of, but how involved do they get in helping these young kids for after they're done playing?
You can get a lot of them involved. So at the University of Houston, we had a big, H-Town takeover, and a lot of people in Houston just wanted us to win. And you start talking to people like, "Oh, you didn't go to Houston?" I'm like, "Yeah, I went to, this community college or this college." And so you're like, "Okay, well, what do you do? Like, and how can you help?" Right? And so I'm always looking like, and this is something I tell players. So even when I would meet fans at tailgates or whatever, I would stop because they're going to talk about sports. There's no doubt about it. And I used to tell my players, and I did the same thing. Once they take that first breath, intercept that conversation. Hey, what do you do? How did you get to where you're at right now? Can I have a 15-minute meeting with you, whatever it may be. So now I'm talking to a fan's talking about how great the guys played, how great a recruiting class we had, whatever. If I'm out dinner and I got all my UH gear, whatever, I would do that on purpose too. Like
Yeah,
if I was at work, I would wear the gear because people you get conversations. And so, hey, you work Baylor? Yeah, I work there, I work
yeah,
in football. Oh, player development. Oh, boom, boom, boom. So I'm telling them about what I do. They tell me what they do. And then I pause and say, so where did you get to? Why do you love Baylor? This is that. I'm from the city, boom, boom, boom. And I say, hey, so you work, or you have this connection. Hey, I would love to have a meeting with you because I have a player that's interested in that. Do you
yeah,
mind meeting with a player? Absolutely. Whatever. I used to tell our players whenever they used to sign before NIL, when they used to sign stuff, because you can't sign two in compliance. Back then, I don't know how it is now, but you can't sign two, whoever. You have to just sign the thing. I would tell them if they sign something for a kid, stop the parent, mom or dad, say, hey, thank you so much. Do you mind if I get your business card? I would love to, talk about, how to, 'cause especially if they're season ticket holders, right? Like, how
yeah,
did you get season, like, and so it's just, and they love talking about themselves. And then for them, it's access. So there are fans, you just got to find out because there are fans who honestly want to help. There are the fans that just want to be a part of it. And you got
yeah,
to find that balance. But like we had
yeah,
a guy who he knew a lot of people. He's a young
yeah,
guy. I would reach out to him and he liked all my stuff, so I was like, well, let me reach out. I made this mistake at Kansas. There was a lady who would like all my stuff, all the player development stuff. She would like, I didn't realize and this is where I tell a lot of people, when somebody likes your stuff, reach out to them. Just find a meeting. I didn't know she was a major booster at Kansas.
okay,
So the whole time when I wanted to do this, let's say career discovery, like let's go to St. Louis, let's go to Kansas City, or let's go to Denver, which I found out Denver was the second most populous place for alumni from KU. She could have funded it. It's just like
yeah,
if I would have had a conversation, I could have said, "Hey, we need this amount of money to make this happen." And so there's a lot of opportunity. I say when people continue to like reach out to them, you'll be shocked what they. I mean, shocked. Like we had opportunity to. I mean, we did so many externships for our players just for reaching out like to people and like
yeah.
what do you do? Well, I'm a, entrepreneur. Well, awesome. I got a player who's interested in entrepreneurship. Can he come by? Yep. So
There's so many people, Ed, that want to help.
absolutely.
They just don't know how,
Right.
and by you connecting with them as a player development, guy, it just brings again, back to the ecosystem merger, brings them back together. But
That's
let
right.
me ask you this, of all the years you've been doing this,
Yeah.
is there any one moment, any one athlete, any one particular situation? It's like, wow, what an impact I made on this young person.
Ooh, there's a lot.
Yeah. I know it's a tough one, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out one for sure. Um, I'll use this story. I actually typed this up. Oh, you know what? I'll use this story. I'll use the story. The story's incredible. When I was at the University of Houston, I would always challenge guys with great personalities to get in the community. And so one guy, he actually plays for the Colts right now, Grant Stewart. He has a lot of hair. When you watch games, his hair is everywhere.
A lot of the guys have a lot of hair
Yeah.
now.
Well, Grant's got a lot. When you see Grant, oh, that's Grant. He's got a lot.
All right.
And so I would reach out to Grant. Hey, Grant, you need to get in the community. He had a great smile, had a great personality, really lit up around people. Grant would always run away from me. Now, Grant was a 4x4, Texas state champion. It's a video of him diving past the line to win
All
state.
right.
So I had no chance catching him in the locker room. And so I just kept encouraging him, like, hey, you need to get in community. Every time I saw him, Grant, you need to get in community. The community needs your smile. The community needs your smile. Well, when I was going to the University of Kansas, it was a 12-hour drive. So I was reaching out to all the players, calling them like, hey, you can call 120 people on a 12-hour drive.
Oh, you
And
can
so
tell a
I
lot of
would call,
people.
yeah, I would call and say, hey, I'm leaving. I'm proud of you. So I talked to Grant. I called him. I was like, hey, Grant, man, I'm out. It was great with you. He said, Coach, you were right all this time. I'm gonna get in the community. I'm like, yeah, of course you do when I leave. He's like, I'm gonna get in the community. But what happened was Grant got into the community and Grant started playing well on the field. Well, when Grant got invited to the NFL Combine, which was great, he started bringing awareness to sex trafficking in Houston. And
Really?
there were a lot of organizations. I lived in Houston. This was something I found out in Houston. There's a lot of human trafficking, sex trafficking going on there. And so what Grant did is between the combine and his pro day, he raised money to help fight sex trafficking in Houston. So you went from a kid that would never do community to doing a community who's raising money to stop a problem. Now he has his own foundation, and there's an incredible article written on The Athletic about him, about his life. And I did not know. I read the article, I was like, whoa, I didn't know
Wow.
all that was going on. I knew a
Yeah.
little bit just from, as a player development, you observe a lot. And so you're kind of like, but you know, they're once again, they're 17, 18 years old. You don't want to start the conversation off with like, hey, I noticed this, right? So,
Yeah.
but seeing him grow to where he has a foundation now, he does a lot in the community. He has a family, a solid family, which is something he didn't, have growing up. And so that's the story. I texted him the other day, hey man, I'm so proud of you. And
Yeah.
I don't even want responses back because you never know. He might be sitting in the locker room and they just give him what he needs. But yeah, that's a story that I think of was one of them where it's like you challenge people, and that's the thing I think a lot of people are afraid to do with this generation of athletes
Yeah.
because they don't care. They you got to challenge them. Like I remember a teacher told me kids want discipline. They just want consistent discipline. Like they want consistency. And so I would challenge and challenge and challenge. Hey, you're bigger than a player. You need to get in the community. Somebody needs you. And to see what he's done and what he's able to do. And it's just been incredible. So that's definitely a story where, it's worth it because sometimes you're like, man, why am I wasting my time? They're not going to do it right. Like you could think about that, but it's like, no, like you're calling them to something that
Yeah.
they need to do.
Can you just said something which has just hit me like a ton of bricks. Kids want consistent discipline.
Mhm.
Can you drive that a little deeper? And there's probably people that go, kids don't want discipline, but
Absolutely.
they want discipline, they want structure. They just don't want to tell you.
Correct. And it's the craziest thing. I learned this when I was teaching. A veteran teacher told me, Jones, like keep at those kids. They love because I was giving all the bad kids, or let me call them problem kids, trouble kids, because I was a coach. But I was I did not care. You're going to sit up in my classroom. I don't care if I had to tell you 20 times. Sit up, sit up, sit up. More air goes to your brain. I had a whole chart. And so I became the guy who they were like, like at the beginning of the school year, they're like, we hate you. By the end of the school year, like, we love you, right?
Yeah.
Because they want discipline. They just never had it consistently or expectation. Like I worked at one school, we had like one of the top recruits and he came in my office. I was like, hey man, you can't do that in my office. Like, man, I said, you cannot do that in my office. Now I'm gonna tell you that one more time. If you come in here, this is what you're gonna do. And so there was a respect. There's no expect. Everybody's afraid. And it's like at the end of the day, I went back and looked back at what my high school coaches put on us. They gave us a sheet every single year. They sent it to us in the mail. It was 10 things you had to do to be a player. And it's amazing what happens when you put expectations on players. It's amazing
Mm,
and they know that. And so another reason they came in my room is because they knew when I walked to them, I didn't have to raise my voice, I didn't have to do nothing, but they knew if I was coming to talk to them, there was a problem. Why? Because there was expectation, there was consistency. Hey,
yeah.
when
Yeah.
you step past this line, I don't care. There was one school I worked at, and we joke about it now. The head coach's son was on the team and I gave him a nickname, habitual line stepper. Like he would just, I'll call it HLS. That was his name, HLS, habitual lines. I would just call. He knew it. He knew it when I said it what it meant. But there were people who would like allow him to just do because they were afraid that you go back to. I was like, and I told him one day in his face, I said, you can take me back to your dad's office. I do not care. If I get fired, I'm gonna get fired for doing the right thing. You will do the right thing. And so me and him actually like I saw him at a convention and he always enjoyed me, but I always could walk up to him like, hey, you're tripping. You're tripping. You
Yeah.
can stop. But it was because the expectation was there. Like there was a situation where his dad is literally giving the academic report and he's in the red. Like he's got a 1 point something,
Oh,
1.98. And I'm like, and I called him in my office immediately. And I said, you will never embarrass your dad like that again. You will not embarrass your dad. You will not embarrass this program. You will not embarrass your parents. You will not embarrass me like this again. And I held him to a standard. Nobody touched it. That kid's GPA went from 1.9 to 2.6 just because I put fire on him. I did not care. If I'm gonna get fired, cool. You can go back to your dad. And I told him,
Right.
I'll walk with you to your dad if you want to tell me about it. Like, but
Right.
they want that. They want expectation. They know that they're not adults. They do this stuff. A lot of them are doing it just to see if anybody will say something back to them. They're
Yeah.
doing it just to, and I will say they know I will say something back to
Yeah.
them. So it's crazy.
But so Ed, you set the standard.
Yep.
You know, you set the standard, you set the expectation. And here's what I've noticed is like you have your 10 things, right? The 10 things that the coach gave you. Is once you set the standard, the expectation, I think the athletes they want to come knock on your door and say, "Hey, coach, look what I've done.
Absolutely.
Look, I've
Absolutely.
done 6 out of these 10, 9 out of these 10." Or look, they want to tell you
Absolutely.
because they become proud of their own, results.
Absolutely. And to your point, I love that you said that you have to celebrate when they do it right
Yeah.
because you put an expectation. I'll never forget we had this situation where it was something I learned today. It was pretty awesome. We gave shirt whenever a kid hit their semester GPA, we gave them a shirt that said academic excellence, just a t-shirt. A lot of them like t-shirts. So we had already had our event. We did it at a big event. Well, one of our offensive linemen, his grades came through. I was looking at final grades, and there was a kid, tough background from Philly, and I'm looking and I said, whoa, is this his semester GPA? Like high? And academic, I run out of the academics meeting. I go to the equipment. Hey, I need another one of those shirts. He's in the locker room and I'm like, hey, we got somebody with a semester high GPA. And he's a tough kid, but you can see him
Yeah.
smiling because I'm throwing the shirt. I'm jumping on his. He's a big guy, big offensive lineman.
Yeah.
I'm jumping on his back, pushing him. He's smiling and all
And the
that.
team goes nuts, right?
Yeah, but
Yeah.
the expectation I taught him was, and I never forget, I got into it with a coach because the coach was like, "Hey, you need to go. Can you go get him from?" I said, "I'm not going to his apartment to pick him up. He has an alarm on his phone. He knows when to get up and get up. I'm not doing it." And I talked to him today. I say, "You need to step it up. I'm not
Yeah.
playing these games with you. Boom, boom, boom." Well, what
Yeah.
happened was because I was, he's like, "Man, you being an a-hole, whatever, cool."
Yeah.
He had a semester high GPA. When I gave him that shirt and dabbed him up and gave him a big hug, he appreciated. He appreciated because it was this is the stand. This is the guy who's holding me to the standard, who's also
Yeah.
celebrating when I reach that standard.
Right. And I think what you just said there, Ed, is the teams they celebrate their athletic,
Absolutely.
wins a
Yeah.
lot, but I love watching those videos when you see this kid, he's a walk-on and they oh, he's got a scholarship now, the team goes nuts.
Yeah.
But that's still an athletic achievement.
Correct.
To have these kids be the pat on the back, the hugs, the yelling and screaming for academic achievements, I mean
Yep.
that's got to make them feel so great,
Absolutely.
and which is so cool. So let me ask you this crazy question. You've
Mhm.
been to, again, I keep going back to the powerhouse schools you've worked at, athletic departments. When you're going from one to the other, do you bring what you've learned from the other school to this team, or do you have to like reevaluate this team because it's completely different than the other team?
I use a Nick Saban quote. Every year's team is different than this year's team. So let's say, for instance, even when I was at Houston or KU for multiple years, okay, we developed them to this point. What's the new development for the next year? And so you have
Mm,
to learn the team. Like, yeah, you know what? When I got to Baylor, a lot of those players are more mature than players I had at other places. So it's like, okay, 50% of this team is okay. They need my attention, they need my encouragement, but I need to dive into the newcomers, right? Where at a school like, KU, we had a lot of kids from out of state. So you got a lot of different experiences because you got a roster that's coast to coast. In Houston and Baylor, you kind of got a lot of Texas guys mixed in. So I kind of know being from Houston and being from
yeah,
Texas, I get it. I know where they're from. Oh, you're from East Texas, so you value this. You're from,
yeah,
South. I get that, right? But when you're at Kansas and you got somebody from Cali, somebody from Baltimore, somebody from Florida, somebody from Washington, somebody, like Ohio, you got all these different players.
yeah,
So you have to learn. I think I learned this lesson at KU. I came into KU from Houston, like we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that. And it didn't work because number one, I didn't check to see how many resources we already had. I didn't see who was there, and I got to know the players. I didn't get to know the landscape of who can help me get this done. And so I
yeah,
always tell people all the time, just take the first, really, when you're in the role, even if you're in the role and it's a new year, fall camp is going to tell you everything you need to know because you're spending the most time around them during fall camp. So you get to see
yep,
who this team is. It's hot. they're bothered, they're tired of hitting
Oh
each
yeah.
other. Fights are going to break out. You're going to get to see how people handle things, pressure situations. So fall camp gives you a really, okay, this is the team. Because you're not, I don't do programming during fall camp because the two times I don't never do programming is spring ball and fall camp because they're competing for spots and you can get
Yeah.
into it with coaches. And I'm just like, you know what? I
Yeah.
already need the support of coaches, so let me leave them alone when they're doing their thing. And so you get to sit there and learn a team. But every year it's a new team. It's a new team because you're thinking, okay, we went through this summer programming. We can't do the same thing. Like we can't. Or does this the senior group knows? Now it may be a little different now in college football. The reality is so much changes, but even then you have to, okay, who's this person that just came in? Like where are they at on the trajectory? So I used to have
Yeah.
a spectrum, a learning spectrum for freshmen, sophomore, junior, seniors. And it was we want to educate, engage, I forgot, I always get the one. Oh, educate, engage, equip, and provide experience. So I would just do it there. Now you have to take, there's no more classifications. All right. Who needs to get educated on like this university, how to be a college football player? Who do we need to engage with alumni? Who needs to be equipped and who do we need to provide those experiences for? So it kind of always did that. And so for me, that was always the aspect every year. Once I heard that quote from Nick Saban to change everything, this year's team is different than last year's team. So
That's big. That's
yeah,
because it's so true. And now, especially now, sometimes this semester's team is different with the
absolutely.
transfer portal. You
Absolutely.
got you look at Dion, the other 50 kids transferring in, 50 kids transferring out. It just becomes the norm now. So do you really have a whole year, or do you
No,
maybe just have a semester now?
yeah, yeah.
Which is crazy. So how about this one, Ed? Is how if I'm a guy I want to break into the role that you've had for so many years. But I'm a young guy. I don't really have experience, but I have this desire. What advice can you give a young man or woman who wants to break into player development?
Yeah, I think the big thing is so for a while I thought I couldn't tell this story because my story is so different. I was a high school coach and in transition, so I didn't come out of school. But then when I looked at my story, I broke it down and I was like, no, my story is like many other people. Like I was where my feet are. I was a high school coach. I love being a high school coach. Um, and then my name got out because we had a lot of good players. So we had over 40, 50 kids play college football. So a lot of kids were using my name on campus, but I didn't know that. I was just serving them, right? And I remember a coach came, he said, Jones, you will not be at the high school level for long. College coaches will come and get you. But once again, whatever, cool, that's awesome. It'll happen when it happens. But I was where my feet were at. I see a lot of people that want to get to the next role. I talk to a lot of people who are in athletics. If you're in the athletic department, serve, be the best where you're at, and then go provide value to someone else. Every person needs player development. Every person doing player development needs help. But I would just say, where are you at? If you're serving, okay, let's say you're a student, you heard this podcast, you work at a Boys and Girls Club. Create programming at the Boys and Girls Club. Okay. If you're, a student and you volunteer or you're a mentor, do that there. If you work in equipment, be great. Be great at what you do there because it's all about how you treat people. So whenever I tell people, if a coach came to me and he said, Ed, what do I need to find? What do I need to look for in a person to do player development? Now, experience is good. I didn't have experience. I did a great job. But I think these three key skills are what people need. You got to be a relationship builder. That is non-negotiable. Non-negotiable. We can teach everything else except for relationship building. Because you have to build relationships with players, coaches, staff, parents, friends, people on campus, people in the community. So that's the number one thing. Number two, you have to be flexible. You have to be a person. I know a lot of people have their schedule. I do this, that. That player development, the day changes. I would go in at 5 o'clock, like awesome, and they're like, "Hey, this situation happened. Boom, that's the rest of my day. The rest of my day is gone." Right. So you have to be flexible. Some people that they want structure, and that you can find structure in it, but you have to be flexible. And then the third piece is you got to be a lifelong learner. You're going to learn so much in the
Mm,
there's so much I learned in the role about how I can make impact through the role. And so those are the three things. So if anybody's listening to this, you need to evaluate, are you a relationship builder? And then I do actually have a podcast about how you can become a relationship builder. But how do you build relationships? Because at the end of the day, that's what matters the most, right? To your point, Jeff, are my players going to remember, the programming that we did? No. I literally had one player who literally wanted to get in player development. He called me. He never did our programming, which is sad, but whatever. He said, Ed, I want to get into it because what I remember about you was every single day you were there for us and you built relationships with every single person on the team. And so those who want to get into it, be where your feet are and start there. Now, I will say this: I have a 5-step process that I've talked about on multiple podcasts. One of the podcasts like 500 views, so people are listening. I hope they're doing it. But the 5-step process is research the position. Number one, research the position. Player development looks nice on social media. You can see the community engagement pictures and all that, and you're like, oh yeah, they spend time with the athletes. Research it. That's like 10% of the job. Uh, Number two, have a plan. What is the plan? Because I want to get into this. Why do you want? What if a coach gives it to you, gives you the keys immediately, right? Like that happened to me. You better have a plan, right? Number three is to know your value. You need to know your value because you never know when that conversation is going to happen, right? Let's say someone's at an airport and Bill Belichick is, for some reason, he's flying commercial and you're talking to him and he gets a conversation with you. You talk about player development and he asks you, how would you provide value to our program today? You better have an answer. So
You
know
got to
your
be ready.
you got to be ready. Number four, intentionality. You need to be intentional when you network. It's not about knowing everybody. It's about knowing who you want to be. So there's people I help who are like, hey, I don't want to move across country. Well, awesome. You probably need to talk to all the professionals in your area. So being intentional with reach outs and things like that. And number five, follow up. This is the big one. A lot of people slip up on following up. There's people in the space who give the opportunity for people to access them and they don't follow up. For instance, I was at a conference. I'm sitting there. I meet a young man. He says he wants to do player development. I gave him my card. I said, if you call me in the next 2 weeks, I will walk you through everything I did at the University of Houston, University of Kansas, and Baylor University. That kid hit me up 8 months later. And so following up. So those are 5 steps. So if you're there, number one, be where your feet are, research your position. I have a lot of content, newsletter, YouTube, research, because you want to make sure it's the right thing. Because the number one thing is you will be disappointed in this role. And you need to make sure that you love people because every single person is gonna challenge you. Your head coach, coaching staff, the players, parent, they're gonna challenge you. So you better make
Yeah.
sure that you love people. So yeah,
I mean, number five, follow up. If I didn't follow up with you, this would never be happening.
it will never happen.
Because I don't remember, you and I met, it's got to be about a year ago, maybe or
Mhm.
so. And through your social media outreach, I saw you. I'm like, I got to meet this guy. You know what I mean? And we connected and we chatted. And then when I say, hey, I'm going to do this podcast, I'm like, I got to have Ed on this show,
Yeah,
and because I see all this stuff you're doing. You're on I think every social media platform that's out there,
yeah, try.
and I see it all the time, which is and the impact you're making, which is really cool. So it's just proof what you said, your fifth principle, follow up. If I didn't follow that, you and I wouldn't be doing this today.
It's incredible how many people get afraid of I call it the player development ghost. So I actually had a post the other day where I was highlighting someone in the space, and a young lady came into the comments and she said, "Oh, I think he's one of the best because he actually gets back with people." And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, hey, yeah, like, but you got to keep following up. Like they're
Yeah,
in the season. Like people, every person's different. So this person who works for the Minnesota Vikings may have a different situation than the person who works for the Detroit Lions, like what their in-season stuff is. So following up is huge. It's something I'm learning. I have to
yeah,
follow up with coaches, like that one player development program, and then they just go blank for 3 weeks. And
yeah,
it's, hey, coach, I know you want this is a desire of yours. Where do we go from here? So
yeah.
following up is huge.
So Ed, let me ask you this question as far as success. How do you, as if I'm a director of player development, I'm going to guess every school is going to be different. But
Absolutely.
but how do I or you measure success in that program in that world?
Yeah, so I always tell people this. This is the importance of having a player development plan when you go into it. I always tell people if you have a plan, you can create the markers like hey, here's how you're gonna evaluate me. So I think success and it can be broad, but I go back to generational impact. Did we help them make one decision to change their lives? Now, with that said, I have got to a place where I use numerical data because what I realized what was going on was every single person in our organization was bringing forth numerical data. So if that was the strength coach, he's going to talk about how many people gained weight, how many people's bench press went up, different things like that. If it was offensive coordinator, he's going to talk about how many yards they got on third down. The dietitian's going to talk about how much weight people lost. Academics going to talk about the GPA. Everybody's doing numbers. So I was like, okay, I need to change numbers. So what I did was we found success through the numbers. And so, okay, we did over 1,600 hours of community impact. 25 players had opportunity to do a career exploration. We had 20 companies come throughout the year, whatever it may be. So You provide success going back to what that plan was. Whatever that coach said he wants or she wants, you say, hey, this is what we did according to what you wanted to do. And what I would do is always add, here's some extra stuff that we did as well. And so the success part is one that I tell people don't go too deep on it. That may sound crazy, but you don't want to like get too deep in the weeds on it. Like, did we
Yeah.
make it happen? Did we create change? Yes or no? Because, like, for instance, I used to say everybody can identify that little JoJo or John or Baker or whoever is more mature now than they were when they began their freshman year. But people need to see numbers, right? And so it's like, all right, cool. So Baker, what did Baker do? Okay, Baker's class, his attendance went up, his GPA went up, his, him going to class went up, his tardiness went down, his class absences went down. So you have to do things like that to create success.
And that stuff that's hard to measure. It's hard to measure things that have no numbers. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
How about just measuring the how a kid matured?
Yeah, it's tough because it's all qualitative data
Yeah,
with player development. Like, and like I said, everybody should be able to see and be like, hey, this kid's different.
yeah,
But you have to make it quantitative. The other reason you have to make it quantitative is because I found this out. Everybody's not everybody doesn't understand why we have a player development person. So if you could say, yeah, this team is more mature, but they don't care. Like, right. So you have to use numbers to make that person who doesn't understand why you're there understand
yeah.
this is why I'm here. So it is tough. It takes a lot of time. I did some math stuff that went all the way back to me in 10th grade, telling my uh, algebra 2 teacher, I'm never going to use this. I used it
All
to
right.
find out how our class absences decreased over a semester. And so it is tough. It's a lot of numbers.
Yeah.
What I would advise someone in the role if I ever get back to college, go get one of those students in mathematics who's majored in mathematics and say, hey, I need you to make this into a number. How do we make
Yeah.
this into a number? So yeah.
Oh, I'm sure they can do it.
Oh, quick. That'd be
You
easy.
know.
You give them a t-shirt, a polo,
Yeah.
a hat, a
Be all
backpack.
jacked up.
Yeah.
So Ed, let me ask you this, beyond the field, we talk about it, it's the destination, the premier destination, for player development services, but what separates you, your company, your system, your process from the rest that are out there?
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, I appreciate you saying it's Premiere. Definitely, I've been reached out to by many. I think we're at 225,000 views, which is incredible. Because for
A
me,
lot.
yeah, it's a lot. And so what makes it different is my deal is it's all customizable. We're gonna make it for what a coach needs. So I know that there's some people that they're like, they have a lot of stuff that's already created. Here, use this platform. As we talked about earlier, that doesn't work. Every team is different, or works for a little bit, or works for a segment. You segment yourself, and I never want to segment myself. So if a coach says, I only want to focus on one thing, cool, we're gonna focus on that one thing. Here's a program for the one thing. But what sets me apart is I am here to see what someone needs, and I want to provide what they need. Because I can sit there and talk to a coach, and the coach can say, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. That's not the best thing for your university or your high school program or your sport organization, whatever. So, for instance, I was talking to one of the people in the space, and they live in a state where they need to serve people in their state. It's a state that's been low on a lot of education, poverty, a lot of that. And their coach wanted to take a service trip to Atlanta, and it's like y'all don't need to go to Atlanta.
Right in
Y'all
your backyard.
right? Yeah, you do it where you're at. You're gonna lose fans if they see y'all go to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing. You're sitting with coach and saying, Coach, this is what fits you. But for the impact you want to have, here's the best thing you should do. And so that's what sets me apart is it's customizable. Thankfully, I had a friend who kind of talked to me about this when I transitioned from Baylor. He's like, dude, you've been at 3 universities. You've been at the group of five when Houston was group of five. And he's like, you've been at public, you've been in private. So I've been at 3 universities. I've been on a team that won no games. I've been on a team that won the conference championship. I've seen it all. I've been with 5 coaches. I've been through 3 coaches at one school transition. So I've been able to handle a lot of different things overall in the role. And so for me, it's the customization. Like I will come in and customize what a coach wants. We will figure it out. And I will not. That's the big thing I tell people. I share content from what we did to be on the field at the universities I was at, but I do not pinhole people and say you have to do it this way. It is a guideline for what can the success one can have.
So you said something before, along when you're having your conversations with the coaches about, well, they want something, but you think it's something else. How do you handle that conversation, Ed, with a coach who, egos, in that world are big,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
And when you know what they want to do, it might be good, but it's not their best interest, and you think they should be doing something else, something else. Like, how do you handle that to get them to see that?
It's one of those things where you have to. I go back to it's something I learned from Tom Herman at Houston. Tom Herman told me something that changed my entire mindset. I was going through our whole program for the alumni event I told you about. And I'm like, Coach, if you could be here, and he stopped me. He said, Ed, there's no if I can be there. This is your program. I'm going to be wherever you tell me to be because you're the expert at what you do.
Mm,
And that blew my mind. Like
yeah.
I went from asking him to Coach, you will be here. You need to be here at this time. And it just, but he helped change my mindset to like, you know what? He's right. I'm not
But
gonna
that goes back to what you said before, is trust.
right.
About you not only have to get the players to trust you, you got to get the coach to trust you.
Well, he finished that by saying, Ed, I hired you to be an expert. If I have to be an expert in this, then you won't have a job.
That's
So
beautiful.
that changed my mindset to like, I am the expert. He's right. I know what I'm doing. This is how we're gonna do it.
Right.
And so that changed my mind. I learned Tom Herman, he's Mensa, dude's brilliant. He changed my mind on a lot of stuff. But anyway, so and I struggled with it. Well, this happened at Baylor where me and the head coach had some tension a lot because a lot of coaches, to your point, ego, a lot of coaches like yes, yes, men, yes, women around them. Hey, we're gonna do this. I'm not that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've always been, I'm not rude. I'm not gonna disrespect you in front of people, but hey, I'm gonna push back because number one, if it doesn't benefit the student athletes, I'm not gonna sit here and act like it will. But anyway, I dealt with this at Baylor, so I have a understanding of this, and it's telling the coaches. It goes back to they respect experts, and they
Yeah.
may not like it in the moment, and say, "Hey, coach, like for instance, I'm at a place right now where let's say this. I was thinking about this the other day. I have written letters to coaches and said, "Hey, coach, if you want this program, I can help you out." So let's say Bill Belichick calls me in. I'm in Chapel Hill doing the thing. I can't get starstruck. He brought me here to be the expert, and me and him may disagree, but you
Mm,
brought me here to do this. And if you don't like that I'm not kissing the ring or whatever, then that's your problem. Because you said you wanted this, I'm gonna provide this. But it's tough. You have to balance it. Once again, I'm not disrespectful. I say, hey, coach, I understand. I hear what you're saying. In my expertise, the impact that you want to make is going to be significantly less if you do it this way.
yeah.
I don't think you should do this, right? So there was one university that took player development programming from another university, used it, came in and did it immediately. And then when I went and evaluated them, they had a relationship problem with their players. Well, it's because you came in and started doing programming immediately. You got to get to know the players. Like
Yeah.
you can't just take a calendar and say, "Hey, we need to do this by this. We need to do this by this. We need." That's not player development. That is whatever you want to call it. So anyway, that tension is just I go in there knowing, hey, you called me for a reason. I'm an expert, and if to me it's not my problem. I
Yeah.
didn't respect you. I didn't, do anything to demean you. I gave you my input, and if you don't like it, you don't like it. But you paid
Yeah.
me to come here and do a job. I'm gonna do my job.
Yeah.
So
Now, Ed, do you see that how that position has evolved over the years? But do you see that all the big schools have that spot now, that type of position, or is it still a pretty unique spot in the college athletic world?
absolutely, I actually did a study on that. I think it's 41 programs out of 133 that don't have it.
That don't have it.
Don't have it. So you're looking at a majority that have it.
Yeah.
And so they're doing it. Most of your programs who do not have player development are your lesser resource
Yeah.
programs. So the MAC, Mountain West,
Yeah.
um, Conference USA, which makes sense. But your Power Four, I think in the Power Four, so Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Big 12, I think there's like maybe 12 schools overall that don't have it, 9 to 12.
Yeah.
but most people have the position because they
Right.
understand you have to help these players off the field.
And that's now become like a specialty position. It's not like, hey, anybody can do this. Like you need a real long educational track record, you know. But here's the question though I have for you. How do I get my first job if I don't have a track record? Yeah, do I work underneath somebody who's in that spot? Like how does that work? How do you progress to get that job?
I would say a lot of people, I know a lot of people want to go the route that so there's two groups of people I'm talking to. So I'm talking to millennials and I'm talking to Gen Z mostly.
Those are
And
tough to talk to both.
absolutely. So millennials understand. I'm like, they understand I got to get underneath somebody. Gen Z is like, hey, I need to be a director immediately. And it's like, hey, I know you saw my career, but you forgot I was a teacher for 6 years before that. So there was some build up there. And so millennials, I tell them, you get under someone, get to know someone, network, help somebody. Gen Z, I'm teaching them that. It's still tough for them because the thing about Gen Z is they see everybody's career without going all the way back.
Yeah.
And so, but anyway, to whoever it is, I would say get in the door. If there's a person in the city that you're at, see how you can help them. They need support. There's not a lot of people there because what a lot of coaches do, and this is what I tell coaches all the time. I'll get a call and people want to interview me, and I just start off, "Hey, coach, do you want a former player or do you want somebody? If you want a former player, let's do this. Hire them, hire me to consult. I'll work through that former player." Now, what I will do as well is I will, if there's enough space for me to navigate it, push it to where they get somebody else because that former players, not all, some can get stuck in this is what I did. They get around the program and they get stuck in football. And
Yeah.
so they need somebody to balance them. So if someone's calling me, I'm gonna consult and also try and push somebody in there.
Right.
So I think it helps. If I'm looking to get in a role, I would look for people who have former players and try and help them because a lot of
So do you think it's a good idea? Let's say if I'm at Baylor, like you said, the linebacker at Baylor, if he retires from the NFL and he wants to come back to Baylor to get that role, is that a good spot for him to go back to, or is it tough because he played there and he'll have too many football stuff and too much fun versus doing it?
him specifically, he'll be great. They'll hire him immediately.
Okay.
But overall, I think the big thing with former, and not once again, it's not all former players, but what former players sometimes can't let go of is they relate their experience to the current player's experience, and their experience is not the same. It is a
Yeah.
total time. Then what happens is you negate a majority of the team. So let's say, forget this is I'm a former player at University of Houston. I know what it's like to be from the city of Houston, come from a two-parent household, have people, and I'm negating then people who aren't from the city of Houston, people who don't come from a two-parent house. So it's like you got to get out of this is what I was as a
Yeah.
former player, and I'm just here to serve players. And so some struggle with that because they're always talking about the former player. So I think it's tough. I think it's tough. There's a transition happening in NFL where they're starting to move those player engagement. There's a lot of former players. They're starting to move to people who are practitioners who have been at the college level because there has been some struggles with that, where
Yeah.
it's like you're missing most of the locker room, from what I understand from people from the NFL. But yeah, I think you got to balance. You got to know, your former player. Like if
Yeah.
guys coming in talking about the glory days, probably not the best. Now, when they
Yeah.
could alumni and they're talking about it, cool. But
Yeah.
every day is like back in whatever we did this is how we did it. So I actually had the opportunity to be a coach at my old high school. And whenever I would talk about how the expectation when I was a player, I realized it didn't work. Like that was 10 years ago. Like they didn't care. Like
Yeah.
so I had to be like, hey, I played here. I understand what it's like to be a hurricane, but because I understand what it's like to be a hurricane, let me help you where you're at, and we're gonna build this together. What a hurricane looks like in 2015 rather than when I played in 2005. So yeah.
So beyond the field, paint the picture 24 months, 48 months, whatever from now. What's it looking like? Where do you see it going? What's the impact you're making?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something pretty cool. I believe in the next 24 months, this will be my full-time job, and I will be able to just go around and consult with people. I'll have a staff, hire a couple people, and so that'll be pretty fun. Um, and so I'll be able to hire people, and we will go around and we will consult with different programs about what they need to do in player development. We have an in-person conference in Kansas City, so I'm excited about that. I
Now,
feel like
what's that all about? What's that whole around?
So it's a player development summit. It's in Kansas City, and so basically what I did was I did a conference online 2 years. Sorry, figuring out my hat.
Yeah,
Did a conference 2 years online. If you do anything virtual, people want it in person, and so I was like, you know what, let's do it in Kansas City. I live in Kansas City, and so we have a venue. We have dates May 29th through the 31st, and what we're doing is we're bringing in player development professionals, and we have four goals: grow, network, partner, hire. And so we want people to grow. We want people to build with other people in player development. We want people to partner. So sometimes we have, speakers or different businesses that are trying to get in front of school. So they partner. Some do it through sponsorship, some do it other ways. And then there's opportunities for people to hire. There's been some people that have been hired from the conference. So this all started because when I'm going to speak at the AFCA, and I'm gonna talk about player development, but that's it. And then where do you go for player development? Where do we go for the people that want to stay in player development? There's a lot of people that want to coach, but people who are like, I want to be in player development. This is the only thing I want to do. Where do we go? And so this creates that gathering for us to go grow professionally and just encourage each other and be around each other before seasons start. And so that's going to start there. So I see that conference going from, a couple hundred people to being the massive conference, having an international influence. I see Beyond the Field having an international influence where we just help people. We're helping high schools, we're helping colleges, we're helping pros, we're helping different sports, we're internationally. So I see the impact that we're making as being great. And then, once again,
yeah,
it all goes back to generational impact. And so I'm excited for what's to come. We've been building a solid foundation. And so as I figure out the business side of things, I'm excited. There are going to be regional events as well where we go and post up, and maybe it's not the conference, but maybe we're in, New York, Atlanta, LA, and we just do something for people that are in that area. A quick 2 day, 3 day deal. VIP days for people who want to just come to Kansas City and just flesh out whatever they need to. But I'm excited for the possibility, and for me, it goes back to what you mentioned earlier with the fans. I'm at a place right now where I'm opening my eyes to all the people who do want to do it, right?
yeah,
So one thing I noticed, one of the challenges in the business when I started, I was like, oh, this would be awesome. Like, this is easy. I'll just reach out to the directors of player development who are reaching out to me. I'll charge them money. I'll be fine because I know they have money, but I found out they want everything for free. And so
yeah,
I'm like, all right, well, the business side of it is if there are people who are willing to pay because people need this value.
yeah.
And so that's where we will be in 24 to 48 months. So full-fledged company. I'll do this full time. I'm so excited. We'll have a office somewhere where we just do content, help people out all day,
Yeah.
hire 2 to 4 people, and we'll roll from there.
So how do people get a hold of you? Websites, podcasts, email addresses, phone numbers. How do they find you?
Absolutely. So beyond the field. So the website is btfprogram.com. That's the website. All my socials are at BTF underscore program. I'm big on YouTube. You go to Beyond the Field player development page. It's there. Big on Instagram. I'm huge on LinkedIn. You can find me underneath my name. I do more posting under my page. But Edward Jones the second on LinkedIn. You can find us on Twitter at BTF underscore program. We're there. For anybody that's listening, is like, man, I want to dive, and you feel like I've provided some value to you, I would go to the YouTube page. There is this, I calculated this the other day, Jeff. This is crazy. There's 226 videos, 71 hours, 11 minutes, and 55 seconds of content. So
Wow.
almost three days of
It's like a
play.
master's degree.
It is. There it is. It's a lot. Somebody said the other day, it's like you have a library. There's a library of content. Yeah, master, absolutely. You get a master's degree in player development.
Yeah.
So, and by January, end of January, we'll be at 72 hours, which will literally be 3 days. So let's say I have 126 newsletters, 98 blogs, 190 something podcasts. I love this stuff. If you all can
Yeah.
tell, so I will push everybody to go to the YouTube. And if you want to reach out to me and you want me to work with you, once again, email me at info@btfprogram.com. Is the words of Coach Prime, I ain't hard to find.
You're
But
not. You are everywhere. I see you all over the place, which is great. Well, Ed, you're just impacting so many people. Again, I know in the beginning we talked about, the ripple effect. I don't know how far that ripple goes. It just keeps going and going. And I can sit here and talk to you all day about this stuff because it's to me it's super interesting. I keep telling myself, hey, could that be my next career path? I would love to be in that type of world. You know, but is there anything else I haven't asked you, Ed, that you think we should hit on before we wrap it up?
No, I think this is a great amount of questions. I'm not a lot the questions you sent me. I'm about to turn those into content.
Yeah.
But no, I think you. I appreciate the platform. I appreciate the questions. Very thoughtful. Have allowed me to share my love for player development and how people can impact athletes. Hey, as I always say, you all, you can create that generational impact. Don't wait. Create that generational impact today.
And for those that are listening, go to that conference.
Absolutely.
Get out there, spend the time, invest the money, and bring those ecosystems together. Because how many people are they're going to be there and meeting each other? Because you just never know who that next hand you shake could be the next job or opportunity in your life.
That's the part that people don't realize. We had 100 people the first year. So my first year virtually, we had 29 speakers. I remember telling the people who are on my team, I said, "Look, if we get more people than speakers, I'm fine." We had 120 people show up. The next year, the ticket increased. I was like, "Well, you know what? If we can get 50 to 70 people, we'll be fine." 87 people showed up. There were people, so I'm excited for who come. And the speakers we have, we've already secured a couple speakers from the NBA, a couple speakers from the NFL, speaker from big time college football program. So you all that are like, hey, I need to get in front of these people, this is the place to be. I could promise you the value you will get will be 20x the price of the ticket.
Yeah.
Invest in yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you did all the work. All they got to do is show up.
That's it.
Well,
That's it.
hey, this has been awesome. Listen, I appreciate your time, being on here. The impact you're making on in the athletic world is just incredible. Keep up the great work, and I want to get you back on here,
Absolutely.
and we'll keep talking about, the things that you're doing, and who knows, the next person you're going to touch will be the next director of player development at a major college or program where they'll continue that
Absolutely.
ripple effect.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.